Hey everyone, thanks for joining me for this mini lesson. That we're going to try to, in this lesson, we're going to try to make learning stick with case-based reasoning. Okay, sorry, let me get this to work here. Okay, well, I want to start with a brief overview of what we hope to be able to accomplish by the end of this little video. We'll want to, one, be able to explain the key principles of CBR. Two, we can be able to distinguish CBR from problem-based learning, PBL. And then finally, we can sketch out a simple CBR activity that you could use in your own teaching or professional training. All right, let's start with what is case-based reasoning. And I really enjoy case-based reasoning a lot because it reminds me of learning mathematics. In mathematics, it's impossible to be able to know every single problem. You can't anticipate every single problem, and it's impossible to know how to solve every single problem. So what you do is when you encounter a new problem, is that you say, oh, this looks like a similar problem that I solved. And for that problem, I used this, and that technique and this technique, and I applied it and it worked. So maybe I can use similar techniques to solve this problem. And that's basically the idea, as you can see from the little cartoon. Every problem we encounter and every solution we come up with becomes a case that we can use to draw upon. And so we have this kind of four R's we need to remember. So we'll retrieve a similar past case, and then we'll try to reuse that case to solve our new situation or our new problem. And then we'll revise that solution because not every problem is identical. So you'll need to revise it in some way based on feedback. And then you'll want to retain that as a new experience. And that can be put into kind of your case library so that you can always use it when you encounter similar problems. And that's kind of the idea. Okay, now I want to quickly contrast CBR with problem-based learning. And problem-based learning, as you know, is you kind of start from scratch. And so students will try to figure out what they need to learn in order to solve their problem. But uh, conversely, CBR is, as we mentioned, you kind of start from one or more past cases that you've already used in order to solve uh, new problems. And so we should remember that we can use these cases and analogies to help learners transfer what they already know and apply it to new situations. Okay, now I want to kind of move to show you a real world application. I'm going to bring up um, uh, a problem that my team faced where we had to bring in a bunch of data and then manipulate the data in some kind of way and then send that data to different departments or divisions or whatever. As you can imagine, that's a very time consuming, it can be a very time consuming process, and it's prone to errors, and you have to copy and paste, blah, 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 over and over. So we thought maybe we could try to automate this and make it more efficient, quicker. So I just want to show you how we applied these kinds of principles to solve our little process problem here. So I kind of want to run through a little demo here if we can, just quickly. Okay, so we need to bring in the data into this table. So we just, before we had to like copy and paste. Now you just click the data button, you click refresh, and you can import the data into this table. So here's all the data that we need to uh, to send. But before we send it to the appropriate divisions, we'll need to perform some kind of data groupings. And so we just come over here and we select, we want to split the data, and we specify that this is a new data run. And then we create our tabs with our individual data sets. So you can scroll here, each of those data from the table kind of gets split up by these tabs here. And so we can see. And now we want to group some of these tabs together in order to send to the appropriate team. So we just simply have to click group the tabs. We select run. And now we've saved each individual grouping into its own report, and that can be used to send to the appropriate division. And so we've taken basically a what was like an hour or two, and we've condensed it down to a matter of minutes. And that was our problem that we solved. And so initially, this process, as I mentioned, was very manual and error prone and blah, blah, blah. It took forever. And this situation becomes our case that we want to work from. And so building the automation into this process becomes our index case. And then that can be used to run through the 4 R's that we discussed earlier. So we can retrieve. So in a kind of professional development session, I can bring people together and present this automation as a detailed case. I can show the original manual process and all the pain points and the problems. I can show the design of the automation, and I can kind of show before and after. And then I might ask participants in this group, have you had a similar process that you might want to automate? And so people can think about that. Oh, how can we use these similar principles uh, and apply them to our process, which might be similar, but it's not exactly the same. And so they can uh, reuse the principles that we used on our team in order to help their process along. And then they can revise it, of course, as we mentioned. Maybe they don't use Excel, but maybe they use Google Sheets. And so you can revise my solution to fit what you need. And you might ask yourself, okay, what worked perfectly in the automation, and what might we need to change in our process? And then, of course, finally, you retain this. So this new automation of your process becomes your new standard work, and you can add that to your library of automation projects. And so people later on can use that for their to solve their situation. Okay, so what might be the benefits of CBR, excuse me, is that it's very authentic. You just saw that we could apply it to a real world problem. And it allows for better transfer. We can say, okay, what have we done before, and how can we use that to solve our problem? Now, also, one thing we should note is that it supports beginners, novices. They can look at these situations as like the standard. Okay, this is what we need to do, and this becomes like the best practice. So it's easier to come into a team that's already using the best practices. And then, of course, as we've been kind of alluding to, this sort of builds a library of understanding, and so that people don't have to think on their own. Like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can use what's already been done and apply it to your situation. Yeah, so it's a way that we can reason from past cases in order to solve new problems. We don't just, it's not about what we built, but in fact, how we built it and how can we use that in the future. Okay, there are some challenges we should be aware. So you need to be careful about the case quality. So if you don't document your case, then you can't use that in the future. So it needs to be well documented. And sometimes people might overcopy. So you think you have the solution, you could just straight up copy and paste that solution. But every process, every situation is a little bit different. So you need to make sure, you ask yourself the question, what is different about my situation that I'll need to adapt and change? And then you'll have to have time to debrief. Okay, um, what did you learn from this situation? And so you need to document that as well. And of course, that can become very rigorous and a practical process. Okay, and the last thing I kind of want to touch on is how you might be able to use these principles and you could try your own case-based reasoning. So the first thing we want to do is choose a strong case. And the second thing is you'll want to structure that case so that you can, the way you want to structure it is that you want to document the problem, the key decisions that need to be made, the solution that you came up with, the results, and the lessons that you learned. And then you can design a kind of a matching um, to a new problem. And remember, it's about adapting the original case. And then you can run through the 4 R's that we talked about. So you'll want to retrieve, that is, you'll want to discuss the problem. You'll want to reuse, that is, you'll want to draft your solution. Uh, then you'll want to revise, and that is you'll want to refine your solution from the previous case. And then, of course, finally, you'll want to retain, which is that you want to capture that solution and make it part of your case library. So remember, it's just a growing collection of cases and little adaptations in order to solve problems. Okay, and just in closing, I just want to make the remark that CBR helps to solve new problems by using old cases, but concrete cases. And it's distinct from PBL in that it starts, as we mentioned over and over in this lesson, it starts from past cases rather than a new problem every time, like a clean slate every time. And then as we ran through the example, a simple work automation project can become actually a powerful teaching tool for others to use. So everything that we do we can help spread to others. Okay, that's all I wanted to discuss here today. Thanks for joining me. Really appreciate it. If you have any questions, please reach out. Thanks.